You know, the other day I had a thought. Some of the wildest and most memorable moments in the history of Destiny were created through what can only be described as extreme freak accidents. And this got me thinking. I know that no game-breaking bug should be intentionally left in the game forever, as that would probably not be good for things in the long term. But what if Bungie could bring some of those insane moments back temporarily so players could relive the insanity? Don't get me wrong, I don't have any delusions that this would be a perfect fix-all solution that permanently skyrockets the player count. There's still plenty of work to be done with improving the portal, with simplifying the power grind, with improving PvP, and with making new content that players will actually be excited to dive into. But what if, in addition to all that, they made an effort to embrace the insanity? What if we could fix Destiny, in part anyway, by breaking it? I'd like to take a few minutes, if I can, to go over some of the most insane game-breaking moments that the community actually cared about and rallied around, and how at the end of the day, I would much rather have any of those moments intentionally brought back into the game in a controlled environment for a short period of time, instead of having another weak-ass event that nobody really cares about like Arms Week. Let's start with a really weird but really loved one, 12-player raids. Back in early 2021, it was discovered completely by accident that if one fire team was able to join another fire team at precisely the right moment when launching an activity, you could have up to 12 players in one activity at the exact same time. A few tutorials were put out here and there, and once players got a little practice figuring out the timing, the end result was crazy. You could have up to 9 players in a nightfall or a dungeon at one time, and even better, you could have up to 12 players together in a fire team taking on one raid. Now, if you're thinking, hey, that completely trivializes endgame PvE content, 12 players taking on a raid all at the same time would be an absolute cakewalk rather than how challenging they're designed to be. And yeah, that is true. But counterpoint, who cares? That new tech wasn't discovered alongside any day one raid race, so it wasn't really interfering with anything on that front, and players also weren't reaping insane rewards from whatever the Grandmaster Nightfall was at the time. It was just players getting together and having wild fun in a way that was never really possible before. And while we have the upcoming Epic Raid, which will feature a 48-hour contest window, after that, we have basically nothing contest related until the new Renegades dungeon, which launches in December. I'm not a game dev, so I can't comment on if 12-player fire teams were somehow putting strain on the servers in some way or causing some other kind of problems that the average player might not know about, but I do know that players had fun. I'd actually had several people in my community reach out and tell me directly that due to that glitch, they actually stepped into a raid for the very first time ever, which actually isn't that surprising if you think about it, considering how even to this day, only a small portion of Destiny's player base actually does raids. 12-man raids were such a fun memory to the community overall, and even though I'm sure the folks at Bungie were panicking trying to figure out how to undo it at the time, I think that bringing this feature back, even for a short window of time, as a fun, silly, controlled event would be incredibly awesome. And it would probably be another moment where some players would finally check out some of the more intimidating raids we have in the game for the first time ever. I don't know about you, but I, for one, would love to see a 12-player final stand against the Witness. Oh, I'm fully aware that we have Excision. That is not what I'm talking about, although that is a great activity and shows that we have the capability to actually support 12-player fire teams. At this point in time, I say, why the hell not? Pick a date on the calendar that does not clash with any day one contest, raid, or dungeon race, and make it happen. Open the floodgates and let people go wild. And speaking of a weekend where players went wild, who else remembers the Craftening? If you're a relatively new D2 player, you probably at the very least know about the existence of craftable weapons. But what you might not know is that on a random weekend in September of 2023, D2 players discovered a truly wild crafting glitch. Basically, when crafting weapons, players with good timing could essentially trick the game into creating a weapon that was confused about what it was supposed to be. For example, making an auto rifle that was part aggressive frame shotgun, meaning it could fire full auto like an auto rifle, but also fire pellet spread rounds the way a shotgun could, you know, across the entire map. Once news broke that this was a thing that could be done, players spent the entire weekend creating freak hybrid Frankenstein weapons and then unleashed them in both PvE and PvP. I'll admit I was definitely annoyed at first when this happened because back then, laughably, I still kinda cared about PvP and was getting jammed up trying to get to the lighthouse. But once I leaned back and embraced the insanity, it became a fun and extremely memorable weekend. The ridiculous variety in what the community was able to create was honestly inspiring, and we even got a special community emblem to commemorate the event. One of my favorite D2 memes actually was born from this wild event, which was visiting Japan in 8K, referencing the fact that some players were more successful with the craftening bug when intentionally overloading their PCs and their connections, so they went to YouTube to load up extremely high quality videos like Japan in 8K, which still features a top comment from Cami Cakes during the craftening weekend. I know that a lot of players have borderline PTSD from that random weekend in September 2023, but the player numbers exploded and the weird memories are still talked about to this day. I think it's undeniable that a controlled, limited time version of this event would basically be very interesting and a worthwhile experiment to give the community something crazy to play with. Personally, I feel that the craftening was an even more extreme version than original laser tag weekend, which, if you remember, was a real long time ago, back in 2017. Back then, players learned that the Prometheus Lens exotic trace rifle was doing stupidly good damage and erasing players in PvP in the blink of an eye. And Bungie did something that I think they should maybe do more often, which was lean into it. Of course, it all eventually got worked out, but at the time, they intentionally leaned into the meme of Prometheus being broken and even ensured that Xur could level the playing field by giving everyone access to the weapon. Very recently, we had something close to this happen, but not quite the same level. Earlier in the month, when Ashen Iron released, two huge bugs were discovered. One was that while you overcharged your shots for Sturm, an exotic hand cannon, but didn't fire the shots away, you would basically supercharge all the damage dealt by any of your abilities, including supers. And even wilder, if you had a lightweight sword equipped that had no ammo, you could turn on full auto melee via the in-game settings, then jump and spam and absolutely obliterate even the tankiest enemies in the game in a matter of moments. Unfortunately, this was only limited to just the Quickfang sword and the Gold Tusk sword. When Bungie caught wind of what was going on, they announced right away that the glitch would get put up on the chopping block and killed. But the community pushed back kind of a lot, and I felt that the logic made sense. Yeah, it was a game-breaking DPS bug, but folks weren't asking to leave it in the game forever, only a little bit longer to just have a little bit more fun while they could. And ultimately, Bungie gave in, which was great. But I would have given them way more credit, though, if they had fully leaned into the meme and had Xur sell Quickfang that very Friday, which I'm sad to tell you he did not. And some folks were understandably sad about that. So many more players out there could have had so much fun over that weekend if only they had been given access to this silly tool of mass destruction. Again, I know there are real, actual issues that need addressing in D2. PvP, the portal, actual new activities, better communication from the top down, and so forth. But I can't help but notice how much the community rallies when things in the game, mostly harmless things, I should clarify, become massively broken. And when that happens, because surely things will break again, I think that Bungie needs to remember to lean into it, embrace the madness, and ride the wave. And I'm being so goddamn serious when I tell you that if some of these wild moments were intentionally brought back, probably on a short-term scale and in a controlled environment, I know for myself that I would drop whatever I was doing and log the hell on. Just one man's opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Come join me on stream this Saturday for the epic raid, and I'll see you next time.